Hello. So before we get into today's conversation, I want to properly introduce our guests. We have Emma Esper. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional clinical counselor. She works extensively with trauma, domestic violence, and relational abuse, and has spent years helping individuals and families understand and recover from the psychological impact of these experiences. I wanted to start here intentionally because this topic deserves both compassion and professional understanding. So, Emma, before we dive in, I'd love for you to share a little about your work and what drew you into this space.
Thank you, Terry. I'm very happy to be here and such an important topic to speak about. I have a history of trauma myself. That's what got me into being a therapist. I think most therapists have a particular reason why they want to do what they do. Trauma has always been really important to me, and I actually started thinking about specializing in working with females after they've been sexually assaulted. And then I actually started working with men and really recognized how rampant abuse is, especially domestic violence, child sexual abuse, all these different pieces. And so with that, there's this understanding that all diagnoses come from one thing, which is a traumatic experience. And so when we talk about getting to the roots of what's going on for a person, I could cover anxiety, I could cover depression, all the things like that, but the root is trauma and disconnection from the self. So this is why this work is so important.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So before we get into this, I'm gonna read something clearly so I'm clear about the intention of this episode. Mm-hmm. So this conversation is not about us judging survivors. It's not about telling anyone what they should do. Survivor stories matter deeply, but today we're focusing on understanding how domestic violence happens, how it escalates, and why it is so often misunderstood. So this episode is meant to encourage reflection and awareness, not replace professional help. If any part of this brings something up for you, we'll share resources at the end.
Absolutely.
So we'll start with, we'll slow the conversation before we jump in. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about defining domestic violence. Most people think the abuse starts with violence, but where do people misunderstand this the most? So let's get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, physical abuse is something significant, and we're going to talk about that more. But when we talk about what people miss, it's a general pattern of behavior and a way of engaging with another person, right? So domestic violence starts with a lot of psychological pieces before the physicality even happens.
Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
Give me an example.
Sure, absolutely. So this would be where, the tension building happens and the power and control kind of dynamic. So everything is fine and everything is good, and suddenly, you're 10 or 15 minutes late from work and your partner goes, well, where were you? Right? And then they might kind of guilt trip you and kind of shame you and say that you really impacted them. And so then you start recognizing, okay, well, I have to be really on top of it. And so then that person starts developing, like being on the tip of their toes, right?
Yes.
And that is the start of the trauma symptoms in the body. And then that further escalates into after the tension building really comes to the escalation point, right? So people forget about that tension building place. They go to, oh, well, there's escalation, right? The tension building is a really important place to not only recognize, but also to engage with, interact with. That actually is the majority of why people stay, is the tension building part of this experience.
Okay. Now let me ask you something. This is kind of off the cuffs. Mm-hmm. If is a person able to recognize the tension building if they've never been in that type of situation before? So most people don't choose a partner that they know is violent. Let's just say both sides. You would think most people don't do that. Mm-hmm. So if they've never dealt with a person that was violent before, is there a way for them to tell, like, oh, this is not normal. This tension building is probably a sign of something to come, and maybe I should, cut my losses or get out of the situation before it might lead to something else.
Sure, absolutely. And I will say it would be really hard for somebody who's never been through type of trauma to really understand those initial kind of warning signs and the initial tension building phase. And I think more particularly is that a lot of people who enter domestic violence relationships have a history of trauma. And so it's not just that they don't recognize it, it's that they recognize it, but it's familiar, therefore it feels okay. So some of the really early warning signs I like to really remind people of, and we're going to talk about it, I think, a little bit more later, is love bombing, right? And people think that it's because, oh my gosh, right? I finally found this person. It's been a week and they just understand me. We're soulmates. And if we really think about what that means, right? That's saying that within a week, somebody has either known you completely as a whole person or has potentially manipulated you into thinking that there's something here that is bigger than what it is.
Okay. With the love bombing, I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that. Please give me the professional definition of love bombing, because it's a lot of internet professionals that love bombing, and I don't know exactly what it is. Is it a person? Okay, you buy the girl flowers up front, and or you buy her some chocolates? Is that considered love bombing, or what is actual like love bombing?
That's a really good point, right? How do we differentiate between like being a really sweet, attentive person and being a love bomber?
Okay.
And I like that you mentioned that. I also want to talk about when it comes to trauma bonding as well, because there's at least two different definitions of what this is.
Okay.
Love bombing is not necessarily a definition in psychology. It's more of a list of behaviors. So love bombing, again, can include things like possessive kind of language in the very beginning. It might not seem possessive, right? But, she's mine, right? And when a girl hears she's mine, the woman might think, oh my God, I've been chosen, right? He chose me. And maybe that sentence is fine, but we have to think about it with other types of pieces. There will also be isolation, right? You're mine. I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to go out with your friends. Please stay home with me, right? So those possessive pieces start to be there. The isolation pieces start to be there. Pushing boundaries is a really good sign of love bombing, right? So, hey, I can hang out today, but I can't stay very late. I have work tomorrow morning. And then that time comes when they're supposed to go home to go to work the next day. And the partner says, oh, can't you stay with me for another hour or two? Please, 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 right? And then it's not just that these things happen once. It's a pattern of isolative behaviors, of possessive language, of saying really sweet, affectionate things that don't have a background to it.
Okay.
Right? That's what we're talking about. And so when we're doing sweet things for other people, we want it to be very personal, right? Hey, I know that you mentioned that this was your favorite type of flower when you were growing up, and I saw it and I thought about you. Mm-hmm. That's different than I'm going to swing by and grab and just love bomb you and drop off a dozen red roses and boxes of chocolates at your workplace, even though we've been dating only for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. So you want to, we're following the outline, guys. So that's a good thing about having your own podcast. You can just
go.
Do what you, so we can stay on. So we're in the defining domestic violence. So we have the types of abuses, the misconceptions, the conflict versus abuse. So where do people misunderstand the most?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest myths around domestic violence is it's unusual. That's not true. It's about statistically, and I think these statistics are old. We saw an increase of this during COVID. But about 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence at some point in their life, and I believe 1 in 7 men. But also noting that that's what's reported.
Yeah.
So we can only imagine how much higher that is for both types of genders. And that's not even talking about LGBTQ in here.
Those numbers are crazy.
Absolutely.
That's insane. So we'll move to the next point, which is a big topic, a big misunderstanding that a lot of people have. And this is why some victims stay. And this is where I see a lot of victim blaming. I think I would say probably from my part, it comes from a lot of ignorance.
Sure.
And so I'll start off with the question. I'm sorry if I didn't sense you, but what's happening internally that people don't see?
Right. And so what people see is just the behavior, right? They see their friend being hurt. They see their friends struggling. They see their friends' children not growing very well. All those different pieces, they're seeing all the behaviors. So they're seeing it just within that space. They're not seeing it within the whole context of the story and of the person. So this might be that somebody stays because, again, they've grown up with a history of trauma and they think that there's an association between violence and love, right? That could be an early marker. People do not see because, again, the idea of mental health and psychology is still really stigmatized and kind of placed a little bit lower on the totem pole of importance. The psychology is why people stay. right? And that is the person whittling down the other individuals or the victim. And I say victim when I'm talking about this because I'm talking in like more clinical terms.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
That will whittle down the victim's sense of self, sense of ego in a healthy way, their sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And so people stay because they either believe that they can't find anything else or because they actually deserve what's happening to them, right? And so what we see is somebody, again, in a really destructive relationship. I see this with my clients sometimes too, and I can't tell them to leave,
Okay.
right? I have to recognize the whole context and have compassionate understanding about why they don't.
Okay.
The psychology piece is big here.
Okay. So what is unhelpful? So because if you read comments online, which I always tell people, don't read the comments.
Yeah.
Because you just have a lot of hate that's being spewed.
Sure.
And especially if this abuse topic. What is the worst thing to say? Is it bad to tell somebody, oh, you should just leave? Because that's what most people just say. And then you have some women who would be like, I would never be in that situation.
Absolutely.
I would. There is no way. And maybe that's the truth, but is that really helpful?
It's not helpful, and it's not psychologically or biologically even relevant's not the right word, but connecting. So we have somebody, if you say, well, why don't you just leave? First of all, the word just, right? It really is a lot of minimizing, which is part of the inherent problem of it by itself. When you say to a victim, well, why can't you just leave? Then you're also saying that they don't have capability, that they've been wrong before. And so they become shamed by you just like they've been shamed by their abuser, right?
Yeah.
It's also taking away the biological pieces of this. When somebody is in long-term trauma, their physiological responses change. They're in chronic sympathetic nervous system responses, which is the fight, flight, freeze, or in domestic violence, we have fawn responses. Fawn responses is where I'm gonna be kind of like almost like Stockholm syndrome.
Okay.
If my partner is really upset, I'm gonna be like, baby, it's okay, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And it's not necessarily because, well, the biology is just doing that in order to protect the self, right? It's to reduce harm. So again, taking the psychological and the biological pieces, if we say, just leave, that again is really minimizing. And also, it is the most dangerous within a domestic violence situation when you leave.
Okay.
And so the word just, it's not appropriate. This involves a lot of different pieces, including a lot of safety planning, depending on the significance of the domestic violence and if there's children involved.
Yeah, which we're going to definitely get to later. I want you to remember that point.
Oh, for sure.
Because, again, I'm one of the reasons I really reached out is the children aspect, because I had a take on that. And when I talked to somebody, they were like, don't say that. But I'll explain it to you later. So we're going to get to the next part is why friends and family enable. So most people think that they're staying out of it. Now, I will say this. I've been saying this for as long as people will listen to me, and it's kind of fits everything. I think, and this is not blaming anybody, I have a feeling these days that men are more emotional than women, but I think that women enable men more.
Okay.
Now, that's not saying that somebody that's being abused is enabling abuse. That's something separate. I'm saying if you look at a lot of the men that have issues, with whether it's with domestic violence, whether it's not working, whether it's with certain things, it's that some of them have had a mom that has been okay with it.
Right.
And I'll give you one of my own personal experience. I think I was in the sixth grade. So that was a long time ago because I'm 50. So I was in the sixth grade, and we were playing kickball, and this girl named Lisa Granger, I remember her name, she kicked me and hit me in the face with the ball. So I kicked her. When I tell you, my mom whooped me for a week.
Yeah. It was not okay.
Like every day I came home, like, well, that was Monday. It was Thursday, and she was still whooping me. Don't you ever, put your hands on the woman, period.
Right.
So my mom there would be no situation where she would see me hit a partner and be anyway okay with it or even have anything to do with me. And then sometimes you see, and even in our circle with friends, we're not friends with guys that put their hands on women. You just can't hang out with us. We don't have nothing to do with you. If you want to go try to get yourself, some help, that's fine. But in no form, shape, or form am I cool with anybody that thinks it's okay to hit on women.
Right.
So when I say enabling, I'm not saying in any shape or imagination that it's somebody's fault.
Yeah.
But I would say you, and I'm sure you dealt with it. You probably do. There are friends and family that do know. Like, look, my son is beating up on his wife or beating up on the mother of his kids.
Right.
So why would that be okay?
Why would that be allowed?
Yeah.
Why would that be
Yes.
continued? Why would nobody interfere?
Yeah, and if you are a person that's a family member that has somebody to do that, what's the best way that you can help that person? If there's a way that you can do it. Sorry,
there's a lot of different pieces here.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you said about there's more allowances within female spaces for violence than in male spaces for violence. And I think that goes back down to patriarchal spaces, right? Which is that women are like the weaker sex, the gentler sex, and that they need to be taken care of. And when we take out the patriarchal part of that, that's beautiful, right? It's great that, people deserve to be taken care of and everything like that. But because women's patriarchal views are also to be caring and nurturing, right? Actually, I did a study about this, and men identified if it's more of a psychological trait that they're looking for in women, they want them to be nurturing and kind, right? Those are the big pieces. This is what men want. And so being nurturing and kind is really great, but what happens when the person is volatile? What happens when the person has unhealed trauma themselves? And then they go to their partner and they hurt them, but then they say, well, it's because of this, it's because of this. And that's when the female typically goes, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, right? Let me take care of you, let me help you, let me change you, right? And that actually is the definition of trauma bonding. Right, so that's one particular piece here.
Okay, say that one part. Say that definition of trauma bonding over
Trauma bonding,
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
There's kind of two different things I see within the trauma bonding world. One is a little bit more, I'm sure there's lots more stuff on TikTok. I don't go on TikTok. There's trauma bonding, which is where two people have been through something significant together and have bonded more significantly. We think about that when we think about siblings through domestic violence or child sexual assault. We think about that with soldiers at war, kind of connecting to each other. That's the more like social kind of definition of trauma bonded, and that's less bad.
Okay.
The clinical definition of trauma bonding is where the abuser tells the victim about themselves, right? About a significant struggle they've had, right? I had a really, really nasty ex-partner. I grew up being beat, right? My father was in jail, all these pieces. And so when they act out, then it goes back to, it's because I'm hurt. And the female will immediately be kind of pulled to that hurt, like, oh, I get it, I understand.
Oh, okay. So the actual abuser is telling the person, oh, I grew up in the house and my dad was abusing my mom.
Right.
And then so his reason for he's trying to justify his reason for doing that. And even though we know it's wrong, but the victim is actually feeling sympathetic for the person,
right,
because they're connected through, oh, he went through this when he was a kid with his dad.
Oh, this is why, right? He's having such a hard time at work. Okay. He's unemployed, and it's really messing with his sense of ego.
Okay.
And so these problems are not, and when the abuser does say these things, it can be for particular just manipulation, but most of the time it's both things.
Okay.
Right? It's true, and they're really struggling, and they're being manipulative.
Okay. I just thought of something. So now, does it necessarily, is there something where the person who is being abused, do they bond the trauma because they experienced that same trauma before? Or is it possible that they've never experienced any of that trauma that the same person would experience? Like if you grew up in a house where your dad was abusing your mom, and then you got with somebody who grew up in a house where his dad was abusing their mom, a lot of people click under the same understanding of things, because we relate, we live the same life. But if you've never seen it, like if you've never seen those type of things, like I've never seen my dad raise his voice at my mom ever.
Right.
And my mom was a firecracker. She was the one up in my dad's face, and my dad wouldn't blink.
Okay.
So I think that helps in a sense for me, because when I've been in relationships that were volatile, I always thought not to have no reaction because of what I seen my father.
Right. That's stoicism, right? Yeah. I mean, so this piece here about the trauma bonding and what you're bringing up is kind of almost those two definitions of trauma bonding connected together.
Okay.
Right? We both been through similar types of trauma. We both had really struggles. We both have been through addictions. We've had child custody issues, whatever this is. And so they'll have some similarity, right? And then they'll become a little bit fused together that way.
Okay.
But it often develops that codependency.
Okay.
And that codependency would be a significant issue within creating a domestic violence pattern.
Okay. And codependency is hard to break, huh?
Codependency is very hard to break. And again, most people who enter codependent relationships have been in a family system of narcissistic codependency early on in life.
Those sound like that's a bad combination.
It is a very bad
Narcissistic
combination.
And codependency seems like that's like drinking and driving.
Yes, and they always go together.
Yeah.
They always go together.
Real quick, because I forgot, because this is what happened. List your credentials. So I want people to know that, I didn't give you a chance to, I read it off, but I need you, this is where you get to kind of pop your collar because you did the work, so you can let people know, your credentials, so they can know that, again, I don't knock people that get online and do stuff, but I think it's a while social media is great, I think there's also a danger.
Yeah.
Because there, professionals have to go to school. You can't go to YouTube for 2 months and then say, I'm a professional. And I think it's very, very dangerous that people get online and speak like they have professional certifications. And that advice could be taken and it could cost somebody their life.
Yeah.
In whatever, not only domestic violence, but in other things. If it's even medicine, people, they do this, and then people are drinking bleach for COVID. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. So
absolutely,
I'm sorry.
That's the science denialism.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that what you're talking about, and I appreciate why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because you're bringing up a topic that's really important, and I think a lot of people want to bring up this topic, but they might not be doing it in the safest way. And part of that kind of science denialism in response to psychology is because, again, the ongoing stigma, right? Well, it's just feelings, right? That's not true. And you're right, when it's something to this significant level, we need to take it very seriously. Otherwise, what we're doing, again, is minimizing.
Yeah.
Imagine a victim who's online and is looking at TikTok and seeing just somebody rattle off what their experience is. Right? Again, that would just add to the dysfunction. It would add to the increasing symptoms.
Yes.
Right? So these things are really important. In my undergraduate degree, I studied, and I was an honor student, and I did a whole research paper on narcissism, anger, and aggression disposition, because I really wanted to understand where this was coming from. Right? So that was my undergrad whole experience, right? Years of work. And then I got into grad school, and again, we went to where I went was Cal State Long Beach, has a really particular emphasis on trauma.
Okay. Cal State, my parents graduated from Cal State
Long Beach. Go Beach.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to share, just a little personal disclaimer here, is that what came up for me when you were talking about the importance of people being fully trained in this is that actually when I started my graduate degree, I was in a domestic violence relationship and I didn't know it. I took a domestic violence class in grad school and was dissociated the whole time. And I was like, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Right? So that's me after having, a bachelor's degree going into graduate school and having worked in the field for such a long time, and I couldn't see it. Right? So this is why it's so important to go to people who really know what they're talking about.
Yes.
Right? And let's take this matter very seriously.
Yes.
Right? I have 2 different credentials. I work in a beautiful group practice that's very trauma informed, right? I deal with trauma every single day, right? And that's my life dedication, and that's what a lot of trauma therapists will do. And so it's really important to seek the actual help that people need, right? And the best thing that individuals who are supporting loved ones can do is recognize that you can't fix it. Help them get to resources.
Okay.
Help them out. Okay. Don't save it. You can't save it. It's not your job.
Yeah.
It's not in your credentials.
Yeah.
You're not competent in it.
Yes.
Right? And some therapists aren't competent in it either.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's important. I'm sorry to cut you off. I think that's
please.
important because, again, you can search domestic violence in pretty much any social media app.
Right.
and then you'll have people speaking on it. And I looked at some before,
Yeah.
to kind of prepare myself, and a lot of people are speaking from their experience.
Right.
But again, they didn't go to school for it,
No.
and that's important because the training and the things that you get is, people say, well, I lived the experience is the best way I can say. Well, it doesn't necessarily give the other person, because not all situations are the same.
No, very different.
And if one person is reading this, and I'm glad you mentioned that, how it's just getting the right help. Sorry, I'll be going off on a tangent
No
sometimes.
worries.
But I want to. Did you want to add anything else? Or
The only thing I wanted to say that too is that when we're just listening to TikTok, when we're just going on the internet, again, we can go into those misperceptions really quickly, which is, again, that a big one here is that men cannot be abused.
okay,
Right? Men cannot be victims of domestic violence, and that's not true.
okay,
I have several men in my caseload.
okay.
Right? It's just that we don't always see it.
One thing I forgot at the beginning.
Yeah.
When you started, this will take you personally. So I think on one of your pages, did you deal with trauma when what made you again want to get into
Sure.
this field?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember being a little kid and my parents were separated, and there was one day where me and my sister, we both went to I think a second grade, first grade class, and we had these little stories about, what you did over the weekend, right? And all the kids were reading it to all the adults. It must have been something. And me and my sister got up there, and I remember I started reading my story about how mommy and daddy were fighting so much last night that me and sister could not get to sleep, right? And so we decided to jump up and down on the bed, and we had so much fun jumping up and down on the bed. And my parents got really mad at me after that, because what I didn't recognize was that I was sharing about how I was trying to get through experiencing my own parents having domestic violence between the two of them, right? My dad at some point told me that he was glad that he basically abandoned us, because if he had stayed next to us, that he would have been in jail for what he could have done to my mom, right? My dad's significantly narcissistic. He actually has a little cult situation going on, so that's weird.
Wow.
My mother's very emotionally volatile. I believe she's got what we call borderline personality disorder. That's a whole different thing. But that person would be very emotionally dysregulated constantly, right? My stepfather also is emotionally dysregulated. So I grew up in years and years of domestic violence that actually very rarely included anything physical, right?
Yeah.
But carrying that on and recognizing how I was going into adult relationships after that, it made me pause and think, because I didn't think I had been a child who had experienced domestic violence.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it, right? Until I started really understanding what that looks like, right? And the way to make meaning out of grief is to do something with it, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can make one more person understand, if I can make one less male, female, non-binary individual say, you know what, it's not my fault, then this is what we have to do, right? We have to help people.
It's a perfect segue, which you just spoke about, because we're going to talk about the impact on children. And before I ask you a few questions on that, I want to tell you, as a person that's been a kid, sorry that you had to go through that. I hate even, I'm one of these guys, I hate saying sorry for your loss, because it seems so robotic, or just like there's no meaning behind it.
Just
but
like a
it's
button, right?
Yeah, and because it touches, you, if you've gone through things, as a child, and this is one of the main reasons I really wanted to have somebody professional on. So my bold take and my anger from seeing, like I told you, the documentary was, I felt, and you can correct me, and because might be an ignorant take, is that children, we can't choose who our parents are.
Right.
As adults, we can choose our partner. As a child, you have no choice who your parents are. If you bring a child into this world and you allow the child to be around abuse, I feel you should lose your child. Because now you are essentially forcing your child into severe trauma, because now I have to see my mom, who I love, being abused by my dad, whether it's physically or verbally or emotionally.
Right.
And this is my dad, who I love them both because I'm a child. I don't know anything
Yeah.
different. I haven't learned any emotions or what's right from wrong. I just know I love both of them. What size do I choose? Now, if the parent is being physical, as a young child, you can't protect your mom from your dad
Right.
because you're not physically strong enough.
Yeah.
And I think and now you create some of this where you have had people who, and I'll share this story also. I had a terrorist threat back in 1998.
Yeah.
Now, I've never been violent with anybody ever in my life, period. I was, and I share this all the time, because I've been in federal prison, but for fraud, right?
Okay.
And so my kid's mom at the time, she's still my kid's mom now, we got into like an altercation with her and her cousins. And I was like, they were removing some of my stuff from the apartment, and her cousin was like, "I'm gonna mace you," and I said something to the effect of, "These bullets will hurt you more than the mace will." And her grandmother was on the phone, heard the conversation, called the police. I got arrested for terrorist threat.
Wow.
And they sent me to domestic violence classes. Now I'm hot because I'm like, I'm in there. These dudes are kicking women through. I'm like, wait a second. They making them watch the Farrah Fawcett burn in bed. I said, I'm not this type of person. Like, I was like, the judge, you could send me back to jail or something like that. I'm not with these people. These people are physically abused. I said some words
To like put you in that category.
Yeah. So to me, it bothered me because it's like, no, these men. Oh, what? You got mad at her and you kicked her through the glass, man. Somebody need to put you down. That was just in my mind.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate it now because it helped me really, really get an understanding of like, first of all, what not to do.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And what not to be like. But it also just helped me, you have to be always being in charge, try to be in charge of your emotion. You can't be emotional. But to get back, because I tell you, I go off on tangents when they talk about the impact on children. If I go online and I say something like that, see, people will just see the outrage. And it's probably not helpful because maybe it sounds crazy. But again, like you said, you're jumping on the bed. That's your way to deal with it. You have no option. You can't take care of yourself. You can't go get a job. You're a child. And they always say, shout out to the paralegal world because I'm a paralegal.
Yeah.
In family court, it's what's in the best interest of the child.
Right.
That's what they always say. Oh, you could say, they always tell you the go-to is what's in the best interest of the child. Right. To me, if you're suffering from abuse, and especially physical, that your child can see, I just don't see how they should be able to keep their kids. Now tell me why that's wrong thinking and why that's dangerous. And I have no problem because, again, I don't want to spew that in somebody that's going through that situation who, again, that might be the same thing as me telling them, why don't you just leave?
Yeah. Well, you brought up a lot of complicated pieces here. No, it's okay. I'm going to try to make sure I get because they're all super good. Yeah. One piece I really want to identify here is that I study under Gabor Mate. He's a doctor, and he talks about how we live in a toxic culture. Okay. Right? And so that within interpersonal situations, we have trauma, but within communities, we have trauma, right? I mean, we see this within LGBT communities, African-American communities, all these different trauma pieces, right? And then this trauma continued up the space, right? We could argue that maybe more this year. Okay. And that does a lot of detriments to the world, right? I could probably positively say that everybody has some type of trauma, right? Trauma is constriction. We live in a very constricted world. So parenting is a very, very, I think one of the most important jobs you can do, but also ones that people take the most lightly, right? It's really significant. So of course, when we're talking about like what would be best, it would be best if children were not exposed to trauma, right? And in theory, right, the idea of taking away a child from their abusive parent could be helpful, right? There's a few issues with that though, right? One is that if we took as many children who are being abused, right, whether it's through exposure to domestic violence, physical abuse, childhood sexual abuse is significantly rampant. We see these numbers go higher and higher. Where would we put these children? Right? Where would we put them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And another piece of here, and then what you identified, is that we are also talking about the impacts of intergenerational trauma, right? Children are helpless, right? They are completely dependent on their attachment figure, right? And we can go more into that when we talk about impacts to children in general. And you're right, they can't choose, right? At 5 years old, if my parents were screaming at each other for hours and hours and I couldn't sleep, it's not like I could go walk or go call my cousin and go walk over there, right? Me and my sister just had to make some play out of it, right? So because we are that helplessness piece, so it actually goes to learned helplessness, which we'll talk about later too. That helplessness piece, and that means we look to our parent to do something, right? We're asking the parent, potentially the victimized parent, to do something. But then if we say like, okay, well, why doesn't that parent go do something? We're also minimizing the significantly deep psychological impacts that this abuse has on individuals, right? I've worked in crisis services for a very long time. I have seen women who cannot stop using a substance even though they have a child or they're pregnant with a child, right? Domestic violence, you could argue, is a type of addiction, right? There's violence in it, there's adrenaline, there's cortisol, which is a stress hormone. There's all these pieces, and so that cycle of violence can feel addictive to both members, right? And so we have to recognize how powerful that actually is, right? Yes. And it's really hard for those around us because, again, we want people to be better. We want people to be okay. We want children to be okay. And it's really hard for us to sit with the fact that there's only so much we can do, right? There's only so much I can do, right? If a client comes into me and tells me that they're in a domestic violence relationship, unless I am hearing something that's reportable in response to child abuse, and therefore I have to do a mandated report, I can't do anything, right? Other countries have mandated reporting for domestic violence. We do not, right?
Didn't know that.
We don't, no.
And when you explain what you mean by mandated reporting.
Mandated reporting is for certain individuals with different credentials. So this is often where children are around, right, or elderly individual around. So teachers, nurses, therapists, things like that. The part of their legal and ethical guidelines is they are mandated reporters, which means they have to, by law, contact Child Protective Services, 911 potentially, or Adult Protective Services if they hear that abuse may be occurring, right? And that's not confirmation of abuse. It is, because we're not investigators. It's we hear, well, mom got really mad and slapped me yesterday. Okay, I'm gonna have to make a phone call. Right? And that's how a lot of children can be protected. COVID was really scary because children were out of schools, which means guess what happened? There was nobody to help them.
Nobody.
There was no mandated reporter to see that there was something wrong. And they were more trapped in a situation where when you introduce extra stressors, the violence is going to become more significant. Right? And it's just messy. This topic is really messy.
It really is. When you think about it. And you made a good point when you're saying there's only so much that somebody can do. Which just is really depressing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've had clients for years being in a domestic violence relationship and, me supporting them the best they can and just hoping that one day they'll recognize that they deserve more. One day that they'll have the courage enough to go, okay, I think I'm ready to start this process of leaving. That takes a while.
And what would you say, sorry, because I'm thinking about stuff while we're talking about it. We think about when you're saying take the process of leaving. Another thing that I don't think is talked about enough, and somebody had mentioned it to me, the financial abuse aspect of it. Is if you have a stay-at-home mom, or I see a lot of times online, and online, it's just so dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to me, and because I kind of like to see what's going on to kind of get like a pulse of,
Good.
kind of like what to talk about.
Yeah.
To not be like wasting my time with salacious topics like women's body counts and all that type of
Right.
stuff that just really is not going to help anybody.
It's not pertinent.
Yeah, and you think about people are living this right now.
Yeah. More people than they recognize.
Yeah, and the financial, that's a type of abuse, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And would you explain how what that usually happens when you see that? Sorry, I
Yeah,
don't know if I
no,
mentioned
I actually,
it,
I love that we're talking about financial abuse, and I also want to talk about technological abuse,
Okay.
because that's increasing as well.
but- okay.
So economic abuse is technically in the psychological abuse category within domestic violence, right? There's physical, which includes sexual, there's emotional, psychological, and economic is together, and there's verbal. Financial abuse is where you start, the abuser starts to control all of the resources, particularly finances, right? Or even access to healthcare is a big one, right? So like, let's say only the male partner is working and they're the only one with insurance, and it's up to the male partner to put these people on their insurance, or they can take them off, right? Especially when women become pregnant and have children, right? They usually take a pause from working. And that can be an opportunity for the individual to start really encouraging them, oh, don't go back to work. You don't have to go back to work, right? I've even had individuals who are adult women tell me, I really want to go back to work, but my husband asked me why. Why do you want to go back to work? You don't need to. And we're like, it's 2025, of course you need to, right? Eggs are like $1 million.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? I've had people who can only be given allowances by their abusive partner, right? And that can usually start off with, hey, you know what? Like, let's blend finances. It'll be so much easier for us, right? Or it's, you know what? Like, I know you've had a really tough month or two, and I know you really want to get into your beautiful creative work. I'm going to support you for those few months while you don't work, right? And it can start off a really positive thing, but we have to look at all the other pieces of the context. But when you take somebody's ability to work, not only do you decrease their ability to feel like they're a capable person in the world, you also pull them down, especially for females, into that really significant gendered stereotype where you're helpless, right? And if you don't have money, how do you leave?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get everything together? How do you get a new cell phone, right? How do you move out of the state, right? And then we also have difficulties with having enough resources out in the community to help these individuals as well. So the economic abuse is psychological because it goes to that capability piece,
Okay.
right? And it, again, is a really significant reason why people stay. Yeah.
And then cover the how you say it?
Technology?
Yeah, the technology abuse.
Technological abuse?
abuse.
I know. It's actually really interesting. When I started at the practice I'm at, I was more of a couples counselor.
Okay.
And I'm not a very technologically savvy person. I like actually reading books and stuff, so I'm a little old school.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, these couples are talking about, oh, well, hey, you weren't at the shared location where I thought you were. And I was like, what are you guys talking about, shared locations? And I was just horrified as a trauma therapist to recognize that couples are constantly tracking each other now, right? Now I can say this, like, maybe I would put that on so my partner can see if I'm like going somewhere weird, right, downtown LA at night,
Yeah.
hiking in the mountains, sure, right, family stuff, whatever. But the fact that this is constantly on, right? When I think back to when I was being abused, if this technology was here, I don't know what would have happened,
Yeah.
right? So that itself is really, really scary.
And you know what they do? It's under a lot of people, both men and women. It's under their guise of, I just want to make sure that you're safe if
Yes.
something happens to you. Well, I always say, well, something happens to me and I'm in the ditch. It's not going to give you the exact place. And okay, I'll give you that. But why are you checking it every 5 minutes?
Yeah, right. Why is this an ongoing piece of a relationship? Why are the phones that important part of the relationship? And you're right, it is, because safety, which is, oh my God, that's so sweet. He wants to make sure I'm safe, or she wants to make sure I'm safe. But maybe that's not the only reason why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I'm not the location sharer.
Good.
I've always been like, that's just crazy to me. It seems like
Trust is important anyway.
yeah.
Right?
So before we get to like the break in the cycle,
Yeah.
I want to. I told you a little bit earlier before we were on camera. So I want to share with you like a personal experience. So that way maybe you can help, because we did talk about, there's men that are, and let me tell you something, if the men being abused, the police don't believe, it's almost like if you call the police, they're going to laugh at you. But let me see how I should frame this. I actually had it written down, but I'm just going to. So I was in a situation where the person I was with, and there was a child involved, and I don't drink, never have a day in my life. I think the person had a little bit to drink, and our child. So there was a altercation that was building. Let's say it was just building up.
That tension.
And I will preface it with, there was some reserved anger from some infidelity in the past. Let's just say that. So now you got, basis for, being mad about certain things. It hadn't been current, but it had happened on my part.
Right, but that like current grief connecting to all the old grief as well.
So the person was kind of like running towards me, and I can feel the situation escalated. So I'm kind of pushing her back at that time, which I would tell you right now, anybody right now that's listening, I don't think that you should even do that.
It's really difficult.
It's difficult, but I'll say this: what I've learned later on is that I would just lay myself down to avoid even. Because here's the thing: I've been in situations where I've been punched, had my lip busted, but I just couldn't get that mad at the person, because I know if my thing, and this is going to sound crazy, I always be like, well, if I want to just hurt the person, I'll just go sleep with their sister. You know what I'm saying?
There's other ways to hurt them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because physically, I can really, really hurt you,
Sure.
and I just have to be able to look at myself. But in this particular situation, with the child involved, I was feeling like our child was being attacked.
Right.
And if you know anything about that, about if a child's involved in that, Child Protective Services will come out.
Absolutely.
No matter what. And so it got to the point where eventually I had to restrain the person. I didn't want to.
Right.
Afterwards, I felt like bad. I feel bad about even talking about it, like even sharing the story.
Sure.
But it's important because if people are in that situation, there's no training on what to do to how to handle the situation.
No.
And what I don't like, and I see, and especially I do not like when I see women do this, because I know a lot of men do it. I don't like people to say, well, she should just keep her hands to herself.
Right.
And if you hit the man, then you should expect to be hit back. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's a bunch of crap. Because I've seen you men out there be slapped by other men who you couldn't whoop, and you did nothing.
Oh.
You did nothing because you know that you couldn't do nothing with a man. So to now justify it and say, because this woman hit me, I had to hit her back, is just an excuse.
Right. It would be a justification.
Yeah.
Right.
So if as a person that's a male that's in that environment, because I'm trying to protect myself from being attacked,
Right.
punched in the face, if the person's trying to block the door, it was really, really a difficult situation.
Yeah, it sounds like
where
that.
I had to really restrain the person. Like, I didn't grab them by their face or choke them like that. I mean, grab them by, to restrain them, because it was just, And again, afterwards, I still feel like bad. I still feel like, could I handle the situation, differently? Okay. Because again, even with that, why I say that's dangerous to being in that environment. If while you're restraining somebody, they do other things like kick you, all type of stuff. See, now you're in a dangerous thing, because what happens if you lose your mind in that?
Right.
What I'm saying?
What if you lose control in that moment and it escalates further?
Yeah, because restraint can go from something else in a heartbeat And
Sure.
now you're no different than any other person, and now you're still an abuser because there's no justification for it.
Yeah.
So if you had a brother or somebody that you know, or if you have clients in that situation, what would you tell them how to handle that situation? And again, one other thing, I'm sorry, I'm long-winded.
Go for it.
Because a lot of times, especially with African Americans, you do not want to get the police involved
No, you don't want to get the police involved.
at all. Because it's like, you get what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So in the back of your, and I shouldn't just say it's just with African Americans, it could be with other minorities too. I'm just telling you from my experience from being African American.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the best way to handle when it gets like that?
Well, absolutely. And the best way to handle this really would be to do something in the tension building phase.
Okay.
Right? Because that's where there's the least volatility, and I think the most space for control.
Okay.
Right? So the male clients I have, again, the male clients I have, they're wives that are their partners, their female partners that are not, they're not usually physically abusive, right? But everything else. But there's usually children involved and children around, and then men have a particular hard time because if there's a domestic disturbance call, right, men will usually be the center of the focus. And there's some reasons for that.
Yeah.
But also I've had male clients and male friends who have spent nights in jail, right? All these different pieces because they were just trying to defend themselves. They were just trying to protect themselves. They weren't going to be as emotionally volatile in front of the police officer or anything like that. And so I've had a lot of male clients come to therapy after they've been to jail. And so that is a particular pace. The only thing I would say about that is if we're going to a physical space, there is some things you can learn as far as like non-violent engagements and behaviors you can do. I actually learned this when I was working at the psychiatric unit because I was working with really volatile individuals with schizophrenia and things like that. So we learned how to get out of bite holds, right? Ponytail pulls, right? Different things like that in a very non-violent stance. So there are little pieces like that out there. If anyone wants to look up CPI, that would be something. But
What's that stand for, CPI?
God, certified. I apologize.
Okay.
I do not remember anymore.
Yeah, okay. CPI. We'll
It's up there.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people get trained for this in hospitals and different pieces like that because you're working with somebody who is in a big high state of tension, but you don't want to hurt them. Okay. The biggest thing I think with this would be emotional regulation of the self. Okay. So therefore, if you do have to get into a defensive stance where you're maybe holding, if you're regulating yourself during that whole time, you're less likely to kind of pop up. And again, men have more space in the tension building component, right? Yeah. And that's where we start to set boundaries and kind of do these things and say, hey, that's not okay. Men also struggle more in those spaces though too, as far as actually feeling like they have an ability to say something. Right? Most of the men that come to my space, they only started to say something after they became incredibly depressed and weren't connected to themselves at all anymore. Right? So that, again, the self-destruction, the self-whittling away, right? The shame. And a lot of men carry shame, especially if they're being hurt by a female partner.
Yeah.
Right?
And you mentioned is sometimes with the females, it's not necessarily the physical with the men. What is it usually that the females do a lot towards the men?
I see a lot more verbal abuse, a lot of contemptuous language and put downs.
Yeah.
There can be some controlling behaviors in that, like where are you, what are you doing, right? Just a lot of volatility and within the conflict. And I wouldn't even say it's conflict because part of conflict is negotiating and sharing of power, and abuse is wielding over power. Okay. And so it can kind of start to kind of be a little tricky in that space, right? I will have men whose female partners will argue with them in front of children, potentially to see if the male will escalate. Yeah. You know, there's so many different pieces here, and there's manipulation in women just like there's manipulation in men, right? There's also men-on-men relationships where there can be a lot of volatility, right? And that's a big physical match. Yeah. Right? And then when we talk about female and female relationships, right, we're talking more about that verbal, psychological kind of getting at each other space when we talk about going to abuse. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And you know what? Like, just another thing for anybody, right? But especially for men, if something's happening, call 911 immediately. Okay. Unless there's a particular reason why we can't get the police matter involved, okay. Right? Then it's about having support around you, okay. Having witnesses around you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a few things left to cover. Mm-hmm. We got breaking the cycle, so which we know usually isn't a one decision. So what does prevention look like early? Let's talk about that. You can look
early.
at, I'm jumping all over the place, so sorry.
Absolutely, no. Yeah. So when we talk about early, we might want to think of how early that might be.
Okay.
And so let's say, for example, we're working, like any child that's experienced domestic violence really needs to be supported, right? And if we want to kind of take away the ongoing psychological impacts of that, we want to start early, right? So if a child's experienced or witnessed domestic violence, it's really important to put that child in some sort of treatment, some sort of therapy, so that they can really understand, because a child is not going to be able to conceptualize this very well. Okay. And they're not going to know what emotions are okay, right? Maybe sometimes the child is screaming because mommy's getting hurt and dad is like, shut up, right? Yeah. So when we're talking about early prevention, we could start there. Yeah. But other than that kind of childhood piece, when we start to go into this, we need to recognize those early warning signs, which is the love bombing, again, the isolation, and the pushing of those boundaries like we talked about earlier. Okay. Notice if boundaries and consent is being pushed. Consent is a big one with a boundary, right? Okay. Consent is an ongoing process. Okay. We hear about consent a lot when we talk about sex, right? Yeah. As in, we want an enthusiastic yes, otherwise it's a no. Mm-hmm. But this goes along with any piece of a relationship, right? And so when they are no longer asking for your consent anymore, right? When that consent was there and then stops.
Give an example.
I've heard stories where men have asked for consent for sex from their partners, and then they stop, and then it's more of that kind of, expectation. Okay. And that can even go to the woman wakes up and she's being in a sexual position, right? That's not consent anymore, okay. Right? That's not safety anymore. Consent could be going through somebody's phone, okay. Right? Hey, can I look at your phone to see this thing real quick? Right? And if you give them consent once, then that means that does not mean forever. It's you ask each time, yeah. Right? It's just that abusers will stop asking, okay. Right? Because it's not about you anymore, okay. Right? Really recognizing how this person has boundaries in general, okay. Right? Do they have really rigid boundaries, which is like there's exact right way to do something and this and this and this. And that can be a highly controlling way of having boundaries. There's also porous boundaries, which means that they have very little boundaries, so people can just kind of walk in and walk out, right? Usually when we tend to see this, it's the abuser that's got the rigid, and then the victim has the porous boundaries, because those healthy pieces of the boundaries that's supposed to keep them stable have been whittled away. And they were likely whittled away in childhood trauma in the first place, okay. Right? There's also a lot of negativity around boundaries. Mm-hmm. I have to tell a lot of people that boundaries is not about controlling the other person, because it's like, oh, that's an ultimatum. I'm like, no. There's a difference between an ultimatum and a boundary. Yeah. Right? Boundaries are saying what you will and will not accept.
Okay. I like that.
So, for example, I had my partner shut down on me a few weeks ago in response to stress and just was not communicating. And I was really understanding to him, but I said, look, like, this is not something I will accept in my relationship. Right? I'm not saying that he has to not be isolated. It doesn't mean he has to be talkative each time. Yeah. But I'm saying that, if this continues to happen, it will not be something I'm okay with in the relationship. It's up to him what he does with that or not, right? Yeah. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about boundaries. Okay. Right? And again, a lot of people misunderstand the word boundaries, and if they don't understand what boundaries is, they can get very confused, and it's harder to hold up boundaries. Okay. Right? The good protective boundaries. Right? Body autonomy boundaries. If someone's like grabbing your butt, hey, not now. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's a boundary. They're saying, I'm not going to accept that right now. Mm-hmm. And if you push over that boundary, but the boundary is saying what I will and will not accept, guess what just happened? I mean, it's a significant breach, right? Yeah. I'm saying, I will not accept this. And you said, yes, you are. Yeah. Right? Those significant pieces, I think another really big point of those kind of, if we can have understanding, if we can provide more psychoeducation to everybody, okay. If we started talking about these conversations earlier, mm-hmm. right? Or if we just actually had these really blatant conversations like me and you are having right now,
Yeah.
right? Instead of like the TikTok universe or whatever the
Yeah.
heck this is, right?
Or if they put it in school instead of telling me who the 16th president is, which when I can become an age is not going to be helpful.
No.
Because this was actually be something that should go in the curriculum. Because
Right.
because these kids, they start to have teenage love and I know a lot of young kids go through it, and they hide it from their parents. Their parents don't know that they have a boyfriend that might be beating them up or something, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And again, I've said it before. I think love is something that's difficult for adults to deal with.
Absolutely.
And to put it on a teenager who absolutely knows nothing but what they're feeling inside.
Yeah.
That I think they should educate. It should be an education, something that could be taken.
Absolutely. I mean, we have health class. I mean, how well those work or not, I have no idea anymore.
Yeah.
But if we think about health, relational health starts after you are put into this world,
Yeah.
right? We're relational people. And so if relationships and emotions are this difficult, why aren't we talking about it more? Why aren't we teaching about it more?
Yeah.
Versus just kind of minimizing it and saying it's not that big of a deal, right? Again, back to psychology not given the space that it really deserves to be in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All the therapists out there can agree that we are tired of hearing the term soft science, right? What does that mean?
Yeah. Really.
But something I really wanted to mention in here too.
Yeah.
Gosh, I had it. What was it?
No, take your time.
I know, it's like right there.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah. So there we go. I think teenagers are more likely to. Teenagers are likely to be in really toxic relationships, and more than just the teenage piece, but like the immaturity piece. And I think a lot of people have immature thoughts about what relationships are. And I'm not saying that to be judgmental.
Yeah.
Right. I just don't think the world really shares it very much with what this means.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard of somebody saying like, "Oh my gosh, I have butterflies in my stomach"?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know what that actually is?
I have no idea.
It's stress hormone.
Okay.
It's the stress hormone cortisol
Okay.
coming out into your gut
Okay.
and making you feel a little queasy, right? So that stress doesn't necessarily mean it's bad,
Yeah.
but it could be, right?
Yeah.
Something is happening, but people think, "Oh my God, butterflies! That means it's amazing."
Yeah.
Or if they didn't have butterflies, that means that they don't like that person. Like, well, you're just not stressed out around this person right
Yeah.
now.
That's a good point.
Right? So that myth had to get busted. But there are all these myths about what relationships are supposed to be, right? I mean, for men, I've heard of this at the hot crazy scale, right? I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No, I've never.
But this is why men talk about and men can minimize their own abusive relationships, right? I had one male client years ago who, he was just going through the roughest time. He couldn't work anymore. He was his nervous system was so messed up in response to all that abuse. And his justification would be like, "Oh my God, but she's so hot," right?
Oh.
Or, "Oh my God, but she's wild in bed." I'm like, why are we regressing to only that part of ourselves right now?
Yeah.
Right? That's a defense mechanism we're
Yeah.
using, right? So there's these kind of pieces that like different genders have about like what it's supposed to look like, what's supposed to be like, what they might want, and if it's bad, it's okay because it's like this, right? So the hot, sexy kind of scale, hot, crazy scale is like, if she's here, but it's here, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, well, he hits me every once in a while, but he's stressed out, so it's okay," right? All these different justifications.
Yeah.
And if we have it in our minds that it's supposed to be a fairy tale, right? Think about all the girls who watch all those movies, or even boys who watch these movies about how like they immediately meet that person and then they're really in love and like really happy in the end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of that, one, was pedophilia.
Yeah.
And two, again, think about that, right? If we have that idea of, I'm gonna meet my Prince Charming,
Yeah.
right? I'm
My
gonna meet
person.
my person, my soulmate, which,
Yeah.
just personally,
Yeah.
then you're more likely to be the victim of love bombing,
Okay.
right? You're more likely to trauma bond.
Okay.
You're more likely, particularly females come after being in a domestic violence relationship and like, "I'm with my new guy and it's really boring." I'm like, "Is it boring or is it safe?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I know the difference." I'm like, "I think you should think about it," right? Because again, they don't get the butterflies in their stomach. I'm like, "Okay, but what do you get?"
Yeah.
Right? Do you get a sense of warmth when you walk by that individual?
Yeah.
And if people really understood what conflict was, right? The number one reason why couples come to counseling is for conflict resolution and communication skills. Okay. There's usually so much beyond that, like infidelity and all these other pieces that they're not putting right in the very beginning, which is totally okay. Yeah. But if we think about how hard it is for couples to engage with this, right? And part of it's because they don't know what it's supposed to look like, right? When I say conflict, people go, oh my gosh. Yeah. As a couples counselor, I say I'm more scared of the couples that don't have conflict than the ones that do. And people get really confused about what I'm saying. Okay. And I'm like, well, conflict, again, is a negotiation of power, right? You guys are trying to figure something out. Yeah. If somebody's not talking, that either means, one, they're perfectly beautiful and happy, so why are they here? Yeah. Which will take a happy couple, that's great. Mm-hmm. Or two, there's lies here. Somebody's afraid to speak in this room, right? This is not safe. If a couple is safe to fight with each other, they will fight. And there's ways to fair fight, right? And there's lots of resources out there and everything like that. But again, nothing anybody's ever been taught about. Yeah. Right?
Because conflict, if you say that's a stigma with it.
There's a big stigma around conflict, right? Yeah. I mean, I would get into relationships and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't wait for our first fight. Yeah. And my partner would be really confused. I'd be like, well, I just want to know how it goes, right? Yeah. And also there has to be one. If you're not fighting with the other person, then you're not doing it right, because if you spend that much time with any one person, there should be conflict. Again, otherwise you are not saying anything and resentment is going to build up and you're going to blow up at some point.
I agree.
Right?
Nothing is absolutely perfect.
No, there's no such thing as perfect. Yeah. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. I think the idea of soulmates can be this beautiful thing that people think about. But there's a clinician, her name is Esther Perel, and she's big in attachment and sex and stuff like that. And she talks about how soulmates are not inherent, that they're created.
I believe it.
Right? It's not just, oh my God, there's that one person out there for me and I have to find that person. And what happens if that person's abusive? Well, I just have to figure it out. I have to hang in there. Another big thing is that people are like, but I love him or I love her. And then I'm the therapist that says, do you know that love is not enough? And people are like, what? No, love is all you need, right? The song said it. But what else do you need beside love?
You need a lot of other things.
You need a lot of other things. Yeah. Love is not enough, right? Think about those cute little teenagers who are saying goodbye to each other before they go off to their separate colleges. That little love that they have between them is very sweet, but it's not enough to keep them together, right? And so when it goes about we love each other, I'm like, okay, that's great. What else do you have? Because love is important and all of that. But what's your definition of love? And also what else is here with it? Is there trust? Is there commitment?
Is there, like you mentioned earlier, is there boundaries?
Is there boundaries in our relationship? Yeah. Do you even know who the fuck I am? Yeah. Right? Yeah. For me, that trick never worked on me, because if a guy came in and was like, oh my God, like I love you after the first week, I'm like, no, you don't know who the fuck I am. Yeah. Right?
I seen that the other day online where the guy was like, told the girl after 2 days, and I'm like, and I had to put in the comments, I'm like, you should run, because if a guy is after 2 days,
what do you make of that, like, as a guy?
That's crazy to me, because there's you don't, it's lust.
It's lust.
And some people they get offended, but there's no way this guy.
How can you love somebody after 2 days?
You haven't even seen. You might. And again, like you say, a lot of it comes. And I'm a rom-com guy. I like to see all the the happy endings and the ideal of it. But the bottom line is, it takes so much. It takes a lot of work, constant work. It takes a
lot of work, right? Relationships are hard. This is why marriages are not very successful, right? 50% of marriages fail. Yeah. Right. And actually, the Gottmans, which is a significant couples counseling space, says that about 69-70% of couples' problems are perpetual problems, as in they'll never be resolved. Yeah. But what you need is a positive perspective of your partner, right? To have that caringness, that adoration for them, that sense of safety with them. Yeah. That can make any conflict not as big. But if you don't have positive perspective of your partner, let's say you're the abuser and there's a part of you that hates your partner. Maybe you hate your partner because they're actually tending to your children in a way that you weren't tended to as a child, right? Again, I'm also here to say that of course, the victim needs help. But if we really want to get to the core of this, the abuser needs help, right? people, male, babies do not come with a sense of psychopathy.
Yeah.
They don't come like that. They're raised like that. Yeah. It's a nature and nurture piece. Yeah. And that intergenerational trauma will start to impact our epigenetic experiences, right? So trauma throughout generations changes our DNA and how it works and what it looks like.
So let me ask you something real quick. I'm sorry. Some things come up.
Yeah.
So now, like, you're adults. You're living life. You got things you have to worry about. Like, how do you meet somebody? What's the possibility of somebody you're in your 40s or something, and you meet a man that's in his 40s,
yeah,
and he's still having these type of issues? What's the possibility that the person is really going to get the type of help they need to make it even be worth your while?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You get what I'm saying? Because like you say, it's so much. It's like, to me, I think, and I've said it before. I think I told somebody the other day, if a person, I said, if a person puts his hands on you one time, that should be it. Yeah. Period. Because I always say it's the same thing with the pedophiles. Yeah. I don't think that there's no treatment for that. If to me, this is how I feel. I just think there's something that's wired wrong for you to go there. And if you can go there once, then more than likely you can go there again.
If you ever want to go down that topic, we can
we'll talk about it. But anyway, so sorry. So
no, for sure. I'm just saying.
Yeah. You have to come back on again.
Oh, I have a friend that specializes in
because I like to have. This is my point. I like to have stuff that I feel that's beneficial. Yeah. Because I have older boys. Yeah. I have a daughter. But just I recently have a friend that's going through the same thing. Yeah. And having to go down to court and file paperwork, and but the person is the financial beneficiary, and the situation is just crazy, and it's like trying to know how to navigate not reaching out to the person to escalate the situation that the person could be looking at their phone and and so now you just sit back and you feel like you're helpless, right? Because you really are, but you don't want to say the wrong thing to the person. You just want to be supportive. But ultimately, it's like, it's really up to them.
It's up to them.
And you're dealing with somebody who's like, oh, the guy, he's crying and saying he doesn't want to be like this, and he doesn't want to be like this. And I'm like, in my mind, I didn't say this, but I'm like, he puts his hand on you one time, and now he's in the tears. It's like, at some point, you get to be in your 40s and stuff, and you're still doing that type of stuff. It's got a lot of work you're going to be able to do to have to be able to change.
That's the thing, is like, I believe that people can change. I believe with really deep trauma work, individuals who either internalize, as in like they just shut down on themselves, or they externalize and go into the fight responses, right? That they can heal. Okay. They'll never be exactly where normal is. And again, there's no fucking such thing as normal. Okay. We can't make what happened to you not have happened to you.
Correct.
But we can help you grow bigger around what happened to you.
But right? Can they heal without doing any type of therapy?
Deep therapy work?
Yeah. Is it possible they can just heal themselves? No. With just a person there comforting them and them saying, okay, I want to do this. Is that even remotely possible? In my opinion, no. I believe that self-help things and life coaches and stuff like that can work well for certain types of topics. But if we're talking about anything that has any type of stigma to it, let's like, nope. Okay. But the bigger piece about why is that individuals will act out or act in response to that significant trauma. Trauma is running away from pain, right? It is us not wanting to look at the pain, which is what responds in our traumatic behavior responses, right? So avoidance, isolation, things like that, addiction, right? Hurting another person so you don't have to feel the hurt that's inside of you. You're avoiding your pain. Trauma therapy is about coming in, and when clients come into my sessions, I'm like, look, we're gonna laugh together, we're gonna cry together, you're gonna be mad at me sometimes. This is gonna be a very painful experience. Right? And I'm not here to scare you. Yeah. Because I'm going to make this as light as I can. Right? And we can do that through, like, I curse and have tattoos and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But
this is going to be really painful. And you need a really well-equipped, well-educated, credentialed person to guide you through that without you becoming worse or you becoming further traumatized, right?
Yeah.
Because most likely that person that's hitting their partner watched their parent hit their partner, right? That this has been going back. This doesn't just come up, right? We're not inherently against sociality, right? We are social creatures. And so something happened where somebody decides to engage in rape, right? When somebody decides to start hitting, right? And it's that escalation piece. So that's the really important part here, is that you absolutely can heal.
Okay.
You can change. You can become more whole, right? You can have and learn more coping skills to release anger in a good way, right? Anger is not, people have so much hard time with anger, right? And anger is one of the most important energies that we have.
Yeah.
But empowering anger versus aggressive anger, right?
It's got to be channeled the right way.
It's got to be channeled the right way. This way is up. This way is bearing yourself down.
Yeah.
And again, how are you going to know what to do with anger? You could read or listen to a podcast about anger management, but even the word management, right?
Yeah.
That just means you're managing it. That means you can't actually grow further, right? It's just, I have to manage that.
Yeah.
So that's why some of these self-help pieces and things like that, they can be good as supplementary pieces, right? I will be working with a client and I'll recommend them to go read this book.
Okay.
And then come back and we're going to talk about it together, right? But I'm not going to leave you alone with that material.
Yeah.
Or alone with the internet with that material to make up whatever it is that we're here with. So that's a piece. And then I also want to identify here, because you talked about breaking cycles and supporting people.
Yeah, keep it going.
I want to go ahead and just be compassionate and say, you know what? This can be really frustrating, right? Seeing somebody going through this over and over is frustrating, right? Wanting your friend to leave and them not leaving, right? Wanting your parent to leave and them not leaving, right? Whatever it is, it's sad and then it becomes really frustrating. And so there's nothing wrong if those of you supporting individuals with domestic violence, if you feel frustrated with them once in a while.
Real quick before I forget.
Yeah.
But don't go run over there and beat up the person, right?
No.
That doesn't help anything.
Oh my gosh. Don't do that either, because that's the other thing too, right? I mean, when I've told some of my, I told my current partner about my past partner and how, he's like, I would want to beat him up. I'm like, excuse me, that's not your fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also you're saying that violence is going to help violence.
Yeah.
And that is not going to work out well.
Yeah.
And again, if you go handle it for them, then they continue to stay powerless.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it's okay to be frustrated. And part of the frustration is because we have the agenda of fixing it. We have to fix this. Right? Again, let's recognize the significance of it. Let's give it the weight that it has. And recognize that you by yourself can't fix it.
Yeah.
You can be one of the pieces that is in their garden that they're developing, that reminds them that the world is still beautiful and it can be something else, right? So you're there to support, not find a solution.
Well, I'm gonna go to the professional resources. Sorry, this is such a person. We could talk all day about this actually because it's so good. And I'm sorry. I know I sent you an outline and I just go all over the place.
That's good. I like this.
But I see my man Cole looking at me like, "What are you doing, T?" So let's go. Let's see if we have, before we get out of here, some professional resources. Is there that people should look for? And if you got anything else you want to mention that you wanted to mention,
absolutely,
is there, you can give it out. You can also mention how somebody can get in contact with you as well, because somebody might see it that's local.
Yeah, I would love that. Absolutely. So some of the support that is out there, there's a lot of different websites that you can find more information. So there is one that's called RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. And that's actually not particularly just for domestic violence. That stands for Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network.
Okay.
So that's for a lot of survivors of sexual types of trauma, which does include domestic violence. Okay. They also have they have good resources there for how to help somebody who's been through something like this.
Okay.
Of course, there's the domestic violence hotline, which is thehotline.org. They also have some numbers in there as well. You can look up if you need any particular resources, whatever city or county that you're in, you can go to that place's website and find mental health services there. Okay. Of course, 911 is always a resource if needed. On the hotline.org, thehotline.org, it's a domestic violence hotline. These websites are really, they make things as safe as possible, as in, hey, if you need to exit, just press this button and it will go away immediately, so you're not going to be seen. They can actually help you develop your own safety plan, right? So if you can't get to a therapist in time and you need a safety plan done, this service will help you create one for yourself. So there's really beautiful resources like that. And then finding a therapist, right? Psychology Today, calling your insurance, different pieces like that. And I'll talk about what to look for when you're finding a therapist in a second. As far as just individual support, we want to tell them that we believe them, that this is not their fault. They might not believe you. And you're like, okay, I know that you don't believe that, but this is what I believe. I believe it's not your fault. Right? This is what I tell clients too. Like, if they don't have hope, I'm like, I'm going to hold the hope for you until you're ready to take it back from me. So I'm going to hold that this is not you until you're ready to see it as well. And then nothing you did or could ever do would make you deserve something like this.
That's important.
And offering to look for resources for them, offering to go to places to look at with them, right? Creating a to-go bag. And I don't have time to go over a to-go bag necessarily what it needs to look like, but it's one of these things to prepare for if you're ready to leave, right? So having somebody help you with that preparation of getting ready to leave, because you don't do it the same day. There's a million ways to find therapists out there. I always warn people on Psychology Today and things like that. If you're looking for a therapist and it says what they are known for, and they have like a gigantic list, be cautious. Because that either means that they are just a more general therapist, and therefore they probably might not have the particular trauma expertise that somebody might be looking for, or they're lying. I don't know.
It's the same thing with in the legal field.
Is it too?
If you want to get a lawyer, if you're going to criminal lawyer, you want him to specialize in that. You don't want him to be doing DUIs and bankruptcies and all type of stuff like that. It might look good on the resume, but you need him to specialize in what you're dealing with.
Yes, absolutely. Which is, again, also really treating this like the seriousness of it as it is, right? Go to a trauma-trained therapist. Now, when we're looking for a trauma-trained therapist, the website might not tell you as much, right? It might say, oh, I'm a trauma-informed therapist and I do this and this and this. A lot of people misunderstand what trauma-informed is. And so what I always encourage is do a consult with the therapist, right? Call and say, hey, and almost every place, especially in private practice, will give this a free 15 to 10 minute consultation just to see if you're a good fit. And I would ask some questions about how do they conceptualize trauma, right? How do they see it and what types of treatment modalities do they really use? And we want to be looking for trauma therapists that don't just use the word CBT.
What's that stand for?
CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It is a standard, but it is not enough. Because all it does is help you to see that your cognitions impact your feelings and then your behaviors. That's an important part, but it's not enough. So when we're looking for significant trauma work for domestic violence, in my opinion, it's things like self-compassion work. It's things like, you've probably heard of EMDR. There's other types of trauma modalities that are specific, that's not just EMDR. I'm trained in what we call compassionate inquiry, which is a blend of parts work and somatic kind of experiencing. The somatic work in particular is really helpful for trauma. Because if you just do this talk therapy thing the whole time, they still will be probably very disconnected from their bodies. And the connection back to the body and to the gut, right? To follow our gut instinct, that is incredibly important to bring them back to. So I really recommend if anybody's really looking for a trauma therapist, ask them what their somatic background is. Somatic is soma. Soma is the body. And a lot of shame-based processing work, right? Shame is that significant thing of I'm something wrong, right? That's that complete devaluation. Shame is only a relational emotion through abuse. And so really asking, how does that therapist work with shame? right? And hearing what the therapist says to you versus just going off of a list.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Sorry we, just get all over the place. No, for real, you have to come on again.
I would love to. And this is how psychology talks go. It's just because it can be so inspiring.
Yeah, I feel it's too important to try to put in a time window because there's so much information. I just wanted to cover this angle today, but there's all type of other things. Like, this is an ongoing conversation that can be had. So I'm gonna read my little outro. Always transparent with people. Sure. I don't like. Sometimes people like to look like, oh, they got it all figured out, but I'm not an expert in this, so I tried to get something to say. So if this conversation made you feel uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that missed the mark. Discomfort is often where understanding starts. And this episode wasn't about giving answers, it's about helping people think more clearly about something that's often oversimplified or misunderstood. So if any part of this brought something up for you, please take care of yourself and reach out to the professional resources. Emma listed them, so you guys can, go to your local website, like she said, and find it out. Thank you. I will say this to you for your time and your work. I always say, make sure that the therapists are taking care of themselves, because you guys you have to take all that in. It's a lot. It's a lot to do to take that in.
Absolutely.
To be hearing that all the time. So you guys probably are not, you guys are just as important as first responders.
I appreciate that.
This is a work that's not, there's no, it's not appreciated enough, and people don't realize how a lot of people are suffering. I was happy when the mental health people on Kaiser went off strike, and finally, because I knew people that couldn't get a therapist.
Yeah.
And so appreciate, what you do to take your time to have to, be seeing and talking to people and dealing with that. And you are important. So thank you very much.
Thank you
for even coming on. I really, really appreciate it. You don't have it much, because this is important to me. So thank you very much. If you want to add anything else, feel free before we get out of here. Floor is yours.
Yeah, again, just really honored to be a part of this conversation. Trauma is something that is just such an important part of my life, and I love doing the work. It's not that I love hearing all the stories, because of course something happened, but I love bringing lightness into dark spaces. That's another thing to look for your therapist. See how enthusiastic they are about what they do. If anyone ever needs any resources or support or needs a therapist, I'm usually pretty booked up, but I have a lot of different referral spaces, and I can provide a lot of different resources. I am known as the resource queen at my practice.
That's great.
So you can contact me at my email. That would be emmaesper@provia, Provia, psychology.com.
Okay.
I'll leave you on my cards.
Okay. I appreciate it.
And again, thank you so much, because I think part of this is that we shouldn't be silent anymore. These things are happening more and more. I don't think the world wants to stay silent anymore.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.